No, I don't understand. I never understand things, especially with whatever's going on here in Umineko When They Cry, Episode 6. Welcome back, everybody. My name is Michael SK, and I don't remember what happened in the last video. All I know is we're back here again, for whatever reason. And Featherine, or whatever her name is back as her human self. So I really don't know where we left off last time. Oh, I think we were seeing Beatrice as a as reborn as Battler's piece, or Battler's attempt at recreating Beatrice, or allowing her to be reborn, because she's a never-ending witch. I mean, she's got to, you know, make her comeback. But as it's been explained, you know, through various ways here, you just can't become the same person, you know, snap your fingers and it's just like that, especially with Beatrice. I think what's happening is we have Beatrice sort of as we saw her as early on as possible in the story, which was Rosa's interpretation of her back in episode 3. And she does act very similar to that. And Battler's not happy with it. Understandably so.
同じベアとであっても同じでないということがわかるわ。同じ人間が2人いたとしても生い立ちで人はいくらでも変わる。本来は同じ人間であるにもかかわらず、その生い立ちによって別人と言ってもいいほどに変わり得る。本来人は人であり、人格そのものを指して人とは呼びません。しかし人格を人だと認める人間たちにとって、それはさながら他人のようなものでしょう。
I mean, let's say a very close family member of yours was in a coma for a little bit. You know, maybe not a really long time, but they wake from that coma and they have amnesia. They don't remember who they are. And as they sort of get back into the swing of things, I mean, they're going to be a completely different person. They don't have the life that they had, you know, to build off of to create their own personality. Their new personality is going to be created from the moment they woke up from that coma onwards, which is going to create a different person.
違いねえですな。お嬢だって12年前の気の毒な一件がなけりゃ、今頃は笑顔が似合うキュートな女の子だったかもしれね
え。That is also possible.
失礼ね。今だって十分キュートだってば。
That is true. I understand. If a personality is what makes a person in our eyes, you could probably say that a second personality represents a different person entirely, even if it inhabits the same flesh body. At the very least, I'm a completely different person than I used to be 12 years ago. And if my family had come home 12 years ago, then the Ange that resulted would surely be a completely different person from me. Even a single human can become a different person. In fact, depending on their upbringing and endless possibilities, they can become an endless number of different people. So just because this is Beato, well, there's no guarantee that she'll become the Beato that Oni-chan knows so well. And there's another thing that we should note there, is that, yeah, a person is not the same as who they were a certain amount of time ago. You know, me from 10 years ago is definitely not the me now. If you guys go back and watch any, and I mean any, of my videos from literally 10 years ago, you'll completely understand that I am a completely different person today than I was back then. I have a lot more shame. And I don't know about dignity. Hopefully a little bit more of that too. But yeah, definitely go and do that and you'll see what I mean. But in the case of Beatrice, like I said, it's as if she is as of the Beatrice that we were introduced to in Rosa's backstory in episode 3 over at the Kuadorian. So what does that tell us? It could tell us something. It could really push us in a direction that kind of gives us a huge hint on Beatrice, despite it being extremely implied in this case.
人は3日あれば死ぬことだって生まれ変わることだってできる。それが1000年じゃどうにもならないわね。あなたはなかなかできる読者のようですね。並の読者相手だったら同一の人間であってもその生い立ちと時間によって別人になりうることを説明するために 数百ページを割かねばならぬというのに。あまり読者をなめないで。私たちはただ読んでるだけじゃない。読んで考えてるの。
And that's me with Umineko. Believe it or not, I am trying to use my noggin. You guys know that scene from, like, it was an early on SpongeBob episode where Patrick is trying to use his brain and the gears kind of start turning after they've, been at a standstill for a while? Sometimes that's me. Sometimes that is me here.
100人に読ませれば90人くらいは読める。しかし意味がわかるのは50人。そしてそこからさらに考えられるのは20人もいない。よく噛んで飲み込みなさいと。ただそれだけの話なのに。しかしあなたはどうやらその貴重な20人の中の一人らしい。だからここへ招いたのです。人の子よ。
It was seriously hard to like this Hachijo Toya person. However, this forgery that she had written was still in its first stages. It definitely felt as though it contained something very similar to the tales in those message bottles. Speaking metaphorically, one might call it a scent. An indescribably unique and stern atmosphere like a stuffy library. The Beatrice who wrote the message bottles and Hachijo Toya are different people. And yet this has the same scent as that tale. I see. This is why some of those curious witch hunters are so intensely devoted to her. Their keen sense of smell was able to sniff out that familiar scent.
さ、どうぞ。続きを読んで、文字を追うあなたの顔を見るのが何よりも楽しいの。そして、言葉を交わし合うことも。物書きは感想に飢えてるってのは本当ね。でも申し訳ないけど、こんな分厚い原稿を延々と読んでる時間はないの。それより、時間なんていくらでもあるでしょうに。
Both the second hand and the pendulum on the ornate clock behind Hachijo had been moving the whole time. However, absolutely no time had passed for a while now. Only about 3 minutes had gone by since the time she had entered the room. That is very weird.
ね、時間など気にすることもないでしょ。あなたが読み終わるまで、すべての時間はあなたを追い立てない。
ああ、じゃあ次のページ次のページ。
Now he's interested. Amakusa badgered me to turn the page, so I returned to the world of the tale once more. So I guess Ange is both reading it on the outside and on the inside, right? Like, there's Featherine who's talking with her about this and that, and then there's, the less specifics that I guess are being spoken about here on the in the human world, if you will. I don't know what I just said, but why does her tale have the same scent as Beatrice's, I wondered? Is it because she actually reached the truth as she claims? Does this mean that anyone who knows the truth could create an endless number of message bottles? Is that how the Catbox world works? I mean, Battler's trying to do the exact same thing here in the story. Now that he understands how Beatrice has been doing things, the message that she's been trying to convey, well, now Battler can do the same that she was. I see. I guess she might also be an endless witch. In fact, maybe anyone who knows the truth can become an endless witch. An endless tale created by the endless witches. The 2 days starting on October 4th, 1986, where my family is being toyed with endlessly. I have to end it. I have to find a hint of the truth from within this story and end this endless tale. That's the goal. That's the very far away goal.
どうだ、ベアト。俺の作った第6のゲームは。まあ、素直に褒めるやつじゃないもんな。
Yeah, but this form of Beatrice probably will tell you whatever you want to hear.
せいぜい、無能なりにそこそこ頑張ったではないか。
無能なりにそこそこ頑張ったではないか。
Nah, I'm not falling for this. He's teaching her the ways to speak.
ゲームマスターの立場になってよくわかったぜ。お前も毎回 随分と苦労してやがったんだってな。ゲームを作るのは楽なことではない。よもやそなたとそれをねぎらい合う日が来ようとはな。
ゲームを作るのは楽なことではない。よもやそなたとそれをねぎらい合う日が来ようとはな。
違う、こんなのはベアトじゃない。
He's really just trying to utilize her and try to shape her in the way that that he remembered out of Beatrice. It's not gonna work. Battler slammed hard on the desk, but the piece Beato showed no reaction. After all, Battler hadn't ordered her to react. It would be easy to revive that Beato as a piece. However, it would only move according to Battler's wishes. Having a conversation with it was no different from talking to himself. I mean, it's sort of, you know, how he was talking with Kumasawa and Genji in the previous video. The Game Master could summon any kind of piece. He could move those pieces in any way he wanted, reigning as an absolute god. However, for that very reason, they were just pieces. And that made it unbelievably lonely and sad.
お前はたくさんの家具たちやいろいろな物語を紡ぎ出してきた。俺はそれを見て、お前はきっとさぞや楽しいだろうなと思っていた。
だが違う。
お前は信じられないくらいに孤独だったんだ。
お前にとって俺という自らに反逆する対戦相手がどれほど愉快なものか、今の俺には痛いほど理解できる。
あの礼儀正しい、確かにお前なんだろうな、1000年前の。しかし別人だ。お前の姿に瓜二つだからこそむしろ許せない。辛い。
しかしコマではないから俺の意志に背ける。
コマのお前なんかよりあのベアトの方がはるかに血は通ってるだろうぜ。それは認める。だが違うんだ。あれはお前じゃない。お前の生き別れの妹か何かで全くの別人なんだ。だからむしろどうしても受け入れられない。
It really does feel like he's talking to himself here, huh? As much as he hated the piece version of Beato, Battler felt an even stronger dislike for the chick Beato. Even after a whole 1,000 years, she still wouldn't become the original Beato. Even if she were ordered to act like the original Beato, it would just be an imitation. This was a very similar but separate person, and definitely not Beato herself. So, in the previous game, Beato really did disappear for all eternity. Even after becoming the Game Master, there was no way to revive her.
笑えよ、この無様な俺を。
Oh boy, here it comes. I was expecting a little bit more. Just give it a rest already. You're just an illusion who won't laugh unless I order it, and who can't even continue to laugh unless I keep on ordering it. Just disappear. That's rough, man. This is how Battler actually begins to lose his marbles. You know, he's gone through many stages of shit. But this is where he begins to enter the realm of madness. Maybe, I don't know. On Rokkenjima, this day, or rather this round, was the same as any other. The typhoon would be coming very soon. The sky was still overcast, but the clouds were moving quickly. I guess let the game begin. So I would assume that things are very much starting as set in stone with things as any other game would have. There's definitely the case of Kinzo not being alive. However, it does seem like there's those that are lying to keep up the charade. The only thing on Natsuhi's mind was the plan to cover up Kinzo's absence again this year. Kraus appeared to have suffered a stomachache from the stress and was sleeping in his room. I kind of forget about the fisherman, or not fisherman, the boat guy. Is he also a fisherman? I want to say he would be if he has a boat, but whatever. Jessica and Kumasawa had left in a boat to go shopping and greet the incoming relatives on Nijima. The servants had been busy since the early morning preparing for the family conference, the greatest event of the year. Shannon and Kanon were rushing to get the guest house ready.
親族の方々を止めるならお屋敷の客室で十分だろうね。
そうね、こっちのお掃除大変だもんね。でもゲストハウスのお掃除は好き。
奥様や他のムカつく使用人もいないから静かでいいもんね。
Shannon smiled wryly as she performed a detailed examination of the guest room. Did we forget to clean anything? Do we need to restock anything? She diligently gave the room one final check over.
昨夜も入念に点検したじゃないか。姉さんは本当に豆だな。
こういう日に限って油断するといたずらされるの。いざって時、大切なものが見つからなかったり、閉めておいたはずのものが開いてたり。
姉さんはそそっかしいからね。よく確認しながら仕事をしないからだよ。
だから私と一緒に点検してくれてるんだよね。ありがとう。
別に感謝されることじゃないよ。姉さんがしっかりしてくれれば僕まで付き合わなくて済む。
本当は私と一緒にいたいんだよね。甘えん坊さんなんだから。
そんなんじゃないってば。姉さんは最近ジョージ様のことで浮かれてるみたいだからね。
Oh, who wouldn't be?
ミスが多そうで見てられないだけだよ。
カノン君、ちょっとおしゃべりしよっか。
ダメだよ。仕事中だよ。
私とジョージ様のことばかり茶化して、カノン君とジェシカ様はどうなの？
You know, ever since episode 2, like, I'm totally on board with the whole, you know, George being with Shannon deal. Like, that's a pretty good ship in my opinion. Albeit, you know, very, very rough for the two of them. And, you know, it's a difficult matter that George is in, and I guess also Shannon because she's working for that family. But I like that, you know, that struggle that they have to go through. And I know it's very much similar, if not maybe even worse, for Kanon and Jessica, but I feel like that one is so forced. Like, am I alone on that one? Maybe I'm just too much of a George stan.
別に何もないよ。そんなことよりちゃんと仕事は。
Sorry, I was trying to get a drink and I thought I had more time there. What did Kanon do? He had very obviously been trying to change the subject. Shannon had then snuck up behind him and pushed him down onto the bed. What's happening?
お嬢様に一緒に親族の方々をお迎えに行こうって誘われたのに。
仕事があるし。
嘘。仕事なんか何もないくせに。
Shannon and Kanon had switched roles. Normally, Kanon was the one in control, but when it came to romance, it was the opposite. As Shannon had said, Jessica and Kanon were supposed to have been the ones to go greet the relatives at the harbor on Nijima. However, Kanon had suddenly claimed that he had work to do, so Kumasawa had gone instead. Kanon didn't have any work to do. Shannon knew this.
お嬢様、文化祭の時のことがあっても、やっぱりカノン君が好きだって。
僕は家具なのに。
そうだね。私も家具だね。
なのに姉さんは人間と恋をしてる。できるわけなんてないのに。
そうかな。そう決めつけてるから私たちは家具なんじゃないかな。
僕はジェシカお嬢様のことをお仕えする後宮家のご令嬢だとしか思ってない。
本当に？
本当さ。 何？
私ね、ひょっとすると今夜ジョージ様に求婚されるかもしれない。
No, it's a pretty big chance. Shanun wore an incredibly peaceful smile on her face, but Kanon could tell that there was no way she'd let him change the subject. Kanon realized that she must have made him help out there in the guest house in order to talk to him about this, and he clicked his tongue softly.
家具のくせに人間と結婚なんかできるつもりなの？
できると思う。
無理だね。
どうして？
ジョージ様の描く未来の夢を姉さんは叶えられない。
それは。
That is what a dream
人間
means.
じゃない。
It's a dream, not reality.
それに劣る家具。ジョージ様は姉さんを人間だと思い込んでるだけ。
それはそうかもしれないけど。
今日までよく騙し通してこれたものだと思うよ。そうやっていつまでジョージ様を騙し通せるつもりなの？自分が家具であることを未だに話せない姉さんが。
家具とか人間とかそんなの関係ない。ジョージ様は私の全てを受け止めてくれると思うの。
それを確かめる勇気もないくせに。
私ね、求婚受けてみようと思うの。
As Shannon looked up at the ceiling, she spoke of the imagined future that she and George would create. Though some anxiety over the future appeared on her face, so did the joy of knowing what it was like to live with love. As Kanon watched this vivid dream that he was being shown, he knew that none of his words would reach Shannon anymore. Oh, don't worry, I'm stubborn like that too. Maybe not stubbornly in love, I'm definitely far away from that, but once I'm hooked onto an idea of something, it's over.
好きにしたらいいよ。
One may even say it's Jover.
姉さんは一度言い出したらどこまでも頑固だから。
私の生きたいように生きてみたい。もう家具だからとかそういうのに怯えるのはやめようと思うの。
Shannon is coming in with some confidence for this story. Okay. Kanon walked over to the window silently. He saw the rose garden filled with boring gray flowers in bloom. He realized that Shannon was acting above her place, and he knew that her tale had no chance of a happy ending. However, he also knew that no words of his could change her mind now that she had made her decision.
なら僕が言えることなんて何？やめろと言っても姉さんは聞かない。好きにすればと言えば好きにする。なんで僕にそんな話をするのさ。僕の答えなんて姉さんは何も求めてないじゃないか。
私が知りたいのはカノン君のお嬢様への気持ちなの。
僕は姉さんたちとは何の関係もないよ。
カノン君は本当にお嬢様のことは何とも思っていないの？
It's very interesting that we're actually revisiting this from, all the way back in episode 2 when it was all kind of initiated? I guess it also kind of came up again back in, episode 3? Maybe 4? Definitely not 5. I didn't see any of this in 5.
思ってないって何度も言ってるよ。
嘘。
どうして嘘だってわかるの？
わかるもん。姉さんだもん。
わからないよ。僕の気持ちなんて。
わかるよ。カノン君のことなら私は何でもわかる。
本当にわかってるならどうして聞くんだよ。姉さんはジョージ様のことでもう胸も頭もいっぱいじゃないか。そして僕もそんな一途な姉さんが大好きなんだ。だから僕なりに応援してるんじゃないか。そうでなかったら僕だって。
Well, there's a little bit of honesty out of him. You see, the big point here that Shannon is trying to get out of Kanon is for him to admit, Yeah, I mean, sure, we all know, we all know the truth of the matter here. Despite how silly I think a little bit of it actually is, and a little bit of it is, forced, it's still something that seems to be true. However, if he doesn't admit it, then, he'll never be true to himself.
僕だって
お嬢様を好きになりたかった。
Kanon finally turned to face her, honestly and openly telling her how he really felt. That was what Shannon had wanted to hear. And after hearing that, she pressed Kanon even further to reveal his true feelings.
そんな言い方じゃダメ。許さない。
じゃあどうすればいいんだよ。なんて言えばいいんだよ。
好きになりたかったなんて言い方でごまかさないで。カノン君の素直な気持ちをそのまま口にすればいいの。
Yeah, man, go out there swinging.
僕には眩しすぎるんだよ。お太陽のようで生き様が眩しすぎて、そんなお嬢様が好きなんだ。そんなお嬢様に手を差し伸べられて、共に歩こうと言ってもらえて嬉しかった。嬉しいんだ。
好きなんだよね。
ああ、好きさ。お嬢様が大好きだ。
Finally, Kanon confessed his feelings in their entirety. In fact, by saying it aloud, he finally understood how he truly felt. As passionate tears welled up in his eyes, Kanon finally accepted it. He couldn't stop the tears from dripping down his face.
お嬢様も僕もこの島に閉じ込められて、何の希望もなく生きてるのは全く同じだった。なのにお嬢様は自らの道を自ら照らし、自らの足で運命を切り開くんだ。それが眩しくて、お嬢様と一緒にならこんなみすぼらしい自分じゃない。
お嬢様の告白を拒絶して悲しかった。
悲しかった。自分につく嘘がこんなにも辛くて悔しくて、そして僕のそんな嘘がお嬢様を傷つけたのが、そんな自分にもう二度と恋をする資格なんてないと思ってた。
あるよ。恋の資格はね、自分だけが与えられるの。家具だからダメとかそんなの関係ない。ダメだって自分で決めたらもうダメなの。決めつけちゃダメ。だから私は与えたよ。この身の程知らずな家具の身に恋の資格を。だからカノン君にだってあるよ。
恋をする資格が。
うん。あなたにあげられないなら私があげる。
ありがとう。僕はやっと海が見られる気がする。
Without love, baby.
きっと
Without love.
ジョージ様は今夜私に求婚すると思う。求婚を私は受けてこの島を出て、ジョージ様と新しい天地で新しい生活をするつもり。
それが姉さんの選んだ道だというなら、僕に何も言えるわけがない。
この島を出て、そしてこの島へは二度と帰らない。
Shit, I wouldn't either.
カノン君とはお別れになる。
そうだね。僕たちはお別れだね。
I mean, you can leave this island too, Kanon.
もしカノン君が心の底からお嬢様を愛していて、私はあなたと決着をつけなきゃならない。
姉さん。
それがお互いのため。カノン君の思いを私を理由に諦めないで。
僕のわがままが姉さんの幸せを。
私も自覚してるよ。私の幸せがカノン君を傷つけることを。
We have no choice but to hurt each other. As she said this, Shannon turned her back to Kanon. As Kanon watched Shannon from behind, he was struck by her strength and the love that she felt for him despite everything.
姉さん、僕は姉さんと一緒で幸せだったよ。
私もだよ。君がいてくれたから今日まで頑張れた。だからジョージさんとも出会えた。
僕も姉さんが教えてくれたから、お嬢様の眩しさに気がつけた。
私は自分の思いを曲げない。その気持ちだけを見つめて、他を無視してカノン君の心を踏みにじることから目をそらさない。
僕も姉さんを理由に自分の気持ちをもう偽らない。
私の恋が実っても君の恋が実っても、私たちは互いを祝福しよう。
Yes, ma'am.
約束する。そして僕が勝ったらお嬢様を愛し、姉さんも大切にする。
ありがとう。でも私が勝ったら君と島を忘れてここを永遠に出ていく。
勝ったら自分の恋に全力を。たとえそれが報われない恋だと知っていても。
私たちはだってもう
家具じゃ
ない。
Okay. Well, at least they're both able to, like, admit it. So it's as if, you know, it's like what Kanon had said earlier, being able to see the sea. And that also goes back to episode 2. Without love, you can't see it. You know, whatever it is, right? I think being true to yourself, being able to see past how reality has sort of shaped you, and being able to be true to yourself, to be able to pull out what's deep inside and puke it all out onto the sand or whatever. I think that's a part of it here, being able to see the truth of the matter, and I feel like that'll eventually lead us to whatever the fuck is actually going on here. The boat carrying the relatives docked at the harbor. They left the boat one by one, making fun of Battler, as is tradition. Goda wasn't the only one to greet them. Kanon was there too.
皆様、ご無沙汰をしております。ロッケン島へようこそいらっしゃいました。
長旅お疲れ様でした。ロッケン島へようこそ。
そうそう、お上手ですよ。
Goda complimented Kanon in a whisper. Kanon ignored this, looking just a little sour, and continued to greet the incoming relatives.
バトラ君はゴーダさんもカノン君も初めてだよね。
マリアもバトラ初めて。
Not really.
ゴーダさんは凄腕のシェフでいらっしゃるんだぜ。この島に来る唯一の楽しみさ。
光栄でございます。バトラ様、どうか滞在中のお食事はご期待いただければ幸いです。
そりゃ楽しみだぜ。よろしく。
ガノン君もお久しぶりね。今日は元気そうね。よかった。
そうでしょうか。
そうね。顔色が悪くないわ。血色がいいというか、目つきが凛々しくなったというか。
成長期なんだろ。そうして少年は大人になってくんだな。
Yeah.
普段のあんたは今にも貧血で倒れちゃいそうな顔ばっかしてるのに。
You know, I really hate to agree with Ava, but
今日は少し
I
違う
think she's
わ。
actually right.
正気があるんや。男子は3日あれや成長するもんなんやで。カノン君も少しずつたくましくなってるっちゅうことやな。
からかわれてないわよ。みんな褒めてるのよ。
Kanon had sworn to start changing the way he lived bit by bit. However, he had only meant to change within himself and hadn't expected that it would show on the outside. He was a bit shocked to hear that his expression had changed so much, that people had apparently noticed as soon as he opened his mouth. No, maybe the real surprise was his normal expression must have looked so incredibly sullen in comparison. Goda led the way up to the guest house. Kanon brought up the rear, helping to carry some of Kumasawa's shopping.
僕、今日はそんなにも顔色がいいでしょうか。
私にもそう見えますよ。何かいいことありました。
God damn it. You know, we might be 6 episodes in now, guys, but Kumasawa and her fucking laugh is still my favorite. Even Kumasawa was saying it. Kanon, unable to see what his own face looked like, hung his head in embarrassment. Like, honestly, Kumasawa, you know, she's something else, guys. I think we can all agree on that, you know? She's pretty, she's got it going on. When they reached the rose garden, they could see the others streaming into the guest house. Then he saw Jessica running towards him from there. Is even Milady Jessica going to say that I'm in a good mood today? Kanon hung his head even deeper. And so, almost as though he couldn't control himself, Kanon spoke first.
僕はそんなにも違うんですか。
あ、
ほら、カノン君ってさ、積極的に挨拶とかする性分じゃないでしょ。だからみんな珍しいと思ったんじゃないかな。
先ほどはお嬢様にご同行できなくて。
いいよいいよ、こっちこそ新島まで迎えに行くから付き合ってなんてくだらないことに誘ってごめん。カノン君だって今日の仕事いっぱいあるだろうし。
仕事は特にありませんでした。お嬢様が眩しすぎて。
Wow, he is just gonna fucking go right out and say it. Jesus Christ.
一緒にいることに耐えられないほど僕が弱かったからです。
Jessica faltered, uncertain what Kanon was even talking about. However, she realized that this was something too important to be laughed off.
何かあったの？
シャノンが結婚するって。
そっか、やっぱりジョージ兄さん今回でプロポーズするんだね。
I like how everybody already knows. Like everybody, or by everybody, I mean Kanon probably had the hunch. Jessica definitely had the hunch. Shannon has the biggest of the hunches. And, yeah, I mean, shit. Who knows who else could actually know in this family, right? Jessica thought Kanon was sad because Shannon would be leaving. That this new mental state had caused the change in his behavior. And Kanon realized that Jessica was probably thinking this. So he spoke to her clearly and honestly, because he wanted her to know.
僕は自分も辞めると決めていました。
知ってるよ。じゃあカノン君も辞めちゃうの？
今はわからなくなりました。辞めたらお嬢様という太陽が照らしてくれた何かをまた見失ってしまいそうだから。
Jessica could only stare blankly, unable to understand what he was saying. However, she did realize that he was trying to tell her something important. And so she was able to accept that his next words were neither a lie nor a joke.
僕は
Wow.
ジェシカお嬢様のことが
Wow.
好きです。
What the fuck? Battler, like, what did you write, man? What did you put together for this game? Do you guys know that, like, the meme where it's like the guy writing and like it's like the whole place is burning, the fire is even spreading to the paper he's writing on? That's Battler. Oh my god.
私もだよ。
What the fuck?
あなたの太陽のごとき生き方を僕
They're
も
just
一緒
so
に歩んで
honest
み
with
たい。
each other.
あなたとなら家具と蔑んだ自分から決別できるかもしれない気がする。
カノン君は家具じゃない。そして使用人になるために生まれてきたのでもない。年頃の男の子としてもっともっと人生を楽しんでいいはずなんだよ。私も眩しいや。カノン君が眩しくて目が見られない。
これが偽らざる僕の気持ちです。それを今までごまかしてきて僕の臆病さがお嬢様を傷つけたあの日をお詫びします。
いいよ、その言葉だけで私は嬉しい。
だから僕はお嬢様といつまでも一緒にいるために家具をやめようと思います。僕にそのための時間をください。最後にその弱さを許してください。
弱さなんてとんでもない。カノン君は見せてくれたよ。今までの自分と決別したいっていうとびきりの勇気を。
No, he is
だか
coming
ら
in
私は
swinging
応
for
援した
sure.
いし、せかさずいつまでも待つよ。私が太陽になって君の道を照らせるなら、私だって君という人がいてくれたから、誰よりも眩しく輝いて、君がいなかったら私だって太陽になんてなれなかった。だから待つよ、ずっと。
ありがとうお嬢様。
お嬢様はもう嫌だな。
名前で
Oh my
呼
god,
んでもいい
dude.
んですか？
Bro, this is not Kanon. This is not the Kanon we know. I mean, I'm here for it.
二人っきりの
時だけね。じゃないとカノン君に迷惑をかけるかもしれないし。
そうですね。姉さんたちもそうしてるらしいし。
It is so weird to see him smiling. What the fuck?
シャノンが婚約するって話にならなかったら、こういうことは言ってくれなかった？
Kanon hung his head, at a loss for words for some time. But it was true. If Shanun hadn't told him about the engagement, he probably wouldn't have been having this conversation at this moment. Yeah, but it was a push, you know?
だからこそ真剣に考えることができました。
そんなこと言っちゃって、シャノンの話を聞いてて恋がしてみたくなっちゃった？
はい。
素直だな。まあ私もシャノンたちを見てて
In truth, it wasn't quite like that for either of them. They'd been shown the courage needed to speak up and tell the one you love how you feel. And that's what pushed both Kanon and Jessica forward.
僕は何とお呼びすれば。
Okay, so part of the reason why I feel like their, relationship is forced, I mean, yeah, they... okay, hold on, let me start over. The reason why I feel like it is because we were first, in episode 1, introduced to the Shanun and George sort of ship, right? We were introduced to their relationship. So they came first, and that's also how episode 2 started. And then episode 2 also introduced this sneaking connection between these two here, which is all fine and dandy, but we've always seen more of the other two. That's just how it's always been. So my bias has always been towards the other two, not really here. But when you think about it, these two spend more time in the same location than the other two. So you would think that this wouldn't have been, this shouldn't be as forced, right? I don't know, I'm kind of conflicted about it, so ignore me, honestly. Just forget whatever I say.
ジェシカがいいな。
呼びつけは照れます。
じゃ、
Yeah, I was gonna say, throw a sun in there.
言ってみて。ほらほら。
ジェシカさん。
Yeah, there you go.
今はそれでいい。だから私もカノン君のことを名前で呼びたい。カノンじゃなくて本当の名前があるんでしょ。きっとカノンのカが含まれた名前だと思うな。
Oh shit, you know what? I totally forgot about that shit. They do have real names. Were we ever told what those were? I don't remember, actually. It's been a while. My mind has been completely elsewhere with this fucking game.
なんだろう。
ヨシアと。
Oh. Okay, well, there's that. Yoshia? God damn, bro. That's actually kind of a sick-ass name compared to Kanon.
どういう字？
Jessica tried tracing out various characters on the palm of her hand. And then Kanon used his own finger to write out his name on her hand.
これでヨシアと読みます。
Alright.
ヨシア君か。いい名前だね。私の変な名前と違って素敵だと思うよ。
Yeah, honestly, I have to agree. Fuck your boring-ass English name, Jessica.
そんなことありません。お嬢様のジェシカって名前だって。
あ、それもう一回言って。
お嬢様のジェシカ。もう
一回。
お嬢様のジェシカって名前だって。
You're not saying Jessica's son, you're saying it without, like, any honorific, actually. Milady's more of a title.
なんでもないよ。ありがとう。よし。
Even so, that's, somewhat the same thing. The red flowers of the rose garden seemed to celebrate the two lovers whose feelings had finally connected. The scene was watched by one not human who gazed out quietly from beneath the rose garden arbor. Wait, what? Oh, hello. Hello, Beatrice. Come to think of it, those two had never called each other by their names until now. Jessica hadn't known Kanon's true name. Kanon hadn't called Jessica by her name. When people call each other by name, they acknowledge the worth of the other's soul. And that's why names are sacred. When you've been given permission to say someone's name, it means they've acknowledged your soul.
だから、お父様は名前を呼んでほしいと?
Yeah, sure, something like that. No, that's probably wrong. When Father sees me, it reminds him of that other me, the past me. And I'm sure that me called Father by name. However, that probably doesn't mean Father would be happy to hear me call him by his name. After all, I am me, not the Beatrice that Father knows well. What can I do to help Father? How can I be useful to him? After all, that's the only reason I was born. Hanging her head, Beatrice sat all alone in the Golden Lands Arbor next to the Rose Garden. And as she watched the Witch of Theater Going and her Miko as they sat across from each other,
かわいそうな子ね。
yeah, that's one way of putting it, isn't it?
そなたがベアトに同情するとは思わなかった。
No, because it's not the Beatrice that we know.
このベアトをかつてのベアトと同一人物と呼ぶのは、これは全くの別人じゃない。
It may be that, by the rules, this Beato is the Beato. However, saying that would be horribly unfair to her.
かつての好敵視を蘇らせてこれでは、バトラも気がめいろうというもの。お兄ちゃんの絶望も少しはわかる。でも、この子の気持ちもわかるの。人は決して誰かの身代わりにはなれない。それがたとえかつての自分であってもね。
Sorry, I just keep on choosing the wrong times to take a drink, but compared to the young boy and girl who had found new versions of themselves by calling each other by their true names, well, this witch looked very feeble. The witch knew that she was an illusion created in the image of the person she once was, and she also knew that it would only hurt Battler if she were to try and pretend to be that person.
それでもこのベアトはバトラの役に立ちたいと思っている。けなげな話だ。それがベアトリーチェという魔女の意味なの。彼女はそうだと自称している。自分はバトラの役に立つために生まれてきたと。お兄ちゃんのために生まれてきたベアトがやがては連続殺人を犯し、お兄ちゃんに永遠の拷問と称しておかしなゲームに引きずり込む。意味わかんないわ。1000年を経れば人は別人にもなり得るとそなたも理解しているはず。
I mean, one can become a different person over the course of just a few years, honestly. At the very least, Beatrice was once a pure creature who was born for Battler's sake. It's also very clear that, in her current feeble state, she doesn't possess any of the courage or motivation needed to bring about such fearsome serial murders. And that means the sinister witch we all know must have changed during the 1,000 years since her birth.
1000年とか偉そうな単語がよく出てくるけど、魔女の世界ではどうも長い月日を示す別称として使われてる気がするわ。
That's what I'm assuming.
神の世界に近づけば近づくほどに時間の概念は曖昧になる。6年も1000年となるし、1000年がほんの一眠りにもなる。ほんの2週間の月日でさえも100年の魔女を名乗るにふさわしい永遠となり得るのだ。
In other words, the pure Beato transformed into the cruel Beato. During 6 years that could be called 1,000. So, does that mean something bad happened during those 6 years that made her hate Onichan?
納得いかないわ。
Okay, well, again, we gotta recall back. And people keep reminding me of this, excuse me. Yeah, Battler and Beatrice never knew each other. Like, that is not related, or that is not the deal with the sin that Battler has supposedly made and has forgotten about. But, I mean, again, there has to be something, right? There has to be something between the two, if not necessarily a direct connection of knowing one another. And if the idea is it felt like 1,000 years, that could be a pretty big hint. Something happened that cause time to slow. But for who?
その6年間、お兄ちゃんは六軒島はおろか、後宮家の席から抜けてさえいるのよ。その変化にお兄ちゃんは何の関係もない。全くの逆恨みだわ。
I don't know. Something to really consider there, though. I do have to admit. Oh.
おや、こちらにおいででしたか。
Hello, Peace Kumasawa. All right, well, I guess we'll wrap it up on that note. Seems like a good enough time. Why not? All right, well, some things to consider, and I guess the game is now set in motion. We are good to go with game number 6. Episode number 6 is truly going this time for real, for real. I don't even know how long episode 6 is. I don't know how long these episodes will be all the way to the end. I don't even remember how long episode 5 was, but that one did feel a bit lengthy. Yeah, I don't know. My memory is awful. But thank you all for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take it easy.